So this video is all about wrist hinge, how to do it, what you need to know, and also how to use it to create, let's call it a perfect backswing shape. So what is wrist hinge? Well, if we took and addressed this golf ball, it is effectively this movement here, and you can see how the club head is working up towards my hands, but my arms aren't really moving too much. This is coming from my wrists. What does it do for us? Well, it's a great source of power. We have to have it in our golf swing if we want to hit the ball a great distance, and we do. We want to get the ball as far down there as we can. With control, yes, but as far down there as you can. So wrist hinge is a huge source of power. Use it correctly, and you could end up hitting the ball further than you've ever hit it before. Now, it's really important that we understand that there's two things that are happening for me to create that movement. Many golfers focus on one, they miss the important one. What is happening? Yes, the club head is starting on the ground, it's moving up into the air. Club head moving up is what many golfers focus on. Should be present, but there's another one which is, we'll call it almost more important. When I do that, notice how the grip end of the club here actually moves slightly closer to the ground. It's moving down. So whatever we want this end to do, move up, move down, move around our body, whatever it may be, we have to do the opposite to this end. So if I want the club head to move up, I have to push the grip down. If I want the club head to go down, I have to move the grip up. It's the opposite. So when I create this little movement here, I'm actually thinking of two things. I'm actually thinking of one, yes, pulling the club head up, but pushing the grip of the club down towards the ground. And I feel like I'm using the heel of my lead hand to do that. I'm pushing down on this end to raise the club head up. What that does is it enables me to keep some length or structure in this lead arm. Notice how when I do that, that lead arm doesn't start to bend, it doesn't fold, and we keep some good extension. Very often, I see this is such a common problem. Golfers sort of lift or move the whole golf club up in that takeaway. And you'll notice that we've got the club head into the air. It's gone upwards by a considerable amount. But notice how my wrist actually hasn't been involved in that. It hasn't engaged, it hasn't set, or we haven't got any of that hinge. My lead arm is broken down, I've got very narrow. So many golfers, when they think of wrist hinge, they think of club head up, but they don't understand that we've got to be pushing the end of the grip away from us. So here's a great little exercise. I call this the hammer drill. You're going to take the golf grip, you're going to turn it over so the toe is pointing down. You're going to set up just behind the golf ball in this instance here. And you can do this at home, in the office, at the driving range. And what I want you to do is feel as if your index finger on your trail hand, so that's here, is working the club head up, but the heel on your lead hand is pushing the grip down. And I want you to imagine that you've got a hammer, there's a nail in the ground, and you're just going to be nailing that into the ground with a hammer. And you can see how my lead arm stays nice extended, there's no flexing of my arms, and that should feel relatively easy. Now when you do that, as I did there without stopping, you really start to feel the different movements of the ends of the handle. One going down, one going up. That's how we do it. We have to do it that way. That's a great little exercise to give you the right ideas, the right feels. Really going to be an eye-opener for many of you. So what happens if we create that wrist hinge and then we start to move into our backswing? Well, we get something that doesn't look quite right. Yes, I've got my 90-degree angle here, my wrists have worked, but you can see how the golf club isn't quite in the right position. What sets the shape of the swing, or the plane if you want to call it that, is the rotation in my lead arm. So as I rotate my arm, I can move that club towards something that might look a little bit more desirable, a bit more natural. I can go too flat, I can move it steeper. I can basically move the golf club through all of these positions. So, if we want to have this perfect backswing shape on plane with some wrist hinge, there are two things that have to happen. We have to set the wrists. We have to rotate the arm through 90 degrees. Then as I start to make my backswing, now we start to get something that looks pretty good. We have that wrist hinge, 90 degrees, lead arm is nice and straight, and we have the golf club on plane. Now, when we look at the best in the world, we see, you know, they're within these parameters, aren't they? We don't see everybody setting their wrist at the same point. Some are later, some are earlier. In terms of plane, some are flatter, some are steeper. We're just looking at, can we get the golf club about in the right area, and can we make sure we're doing it keeping some structure in this lead arm. So here's a great little exercise for you. You're going to go wrist hinge up, push the grip down, rotate the arms to the right, club matches my toe line, add a bit of turn. That is my perfect halfway back position. How do you integrate it into a golf swing? Well, I'm going to attach a little device to my golf club and show you how you can do it in practice. So for this next little drill, you're going to need some sort of reference in the golf club. I've got this device which just obviously makes the golf club longer extended. You can use a T in the end of the golf club, or you can even just choke down on the handle so you've got the grip out there as a reference. What I've then done is I've placed a golf ball which is on my target line, and it's around about the length of my arm behind the golf ball that I'm going to set up to an address. If we can do the two movements that we've discussed correctly, what I should be able to do is get the end of the golf club, or this device in this case, to point at that golf ball. So let me show what that would look like. There we go. There's my halfway back position, 90 degree, and on playing. And there's two movements that are happening to create that. But hopefully, as you can see when I do them together, they look fairly blended. You almost can't see those two movements individually because they're happening at the same time. If we were to isolate them, there's my wrist hinge, there's my arm rotation. The reality is, if you can have those two things in your backswing, it doesn't matter when you do them. You could do your wrist hinge at the start if you wanted. It wouldn't really matter. It would look a little strange and you might struggle with rhythm. So I'm not really wanting you to be too concerned with when you set the wrists or when you fold the arms. I'm just looking for you to understand those two movements and then use a little rehearsal like this to blend them together. This points at the golf ball behind me. That tells me I've added those two movements in. The little drill here would be to create that backswing and then pitch a ball out. You'll see in a minute it's going to be some 40, 50 yards. But then on the way through, try and have the golf club as far away from me as I can. So I don't want my wrists to rehinge quickly on the way through in this little exercise. So let me show you what that would look like. I'm going to take an address, I'm going to rehearse what I'm trying to do, and then I'm going to go ahead and pitch it a pretty short distance. And there's my follow through with that golf club extended away from me. That little exercise is brilliant. For anybody out there who's wanting to work on wrist set or wrist hinge, I'd urge you to try that little exercise because it's brilliant. It's going to give you so many good feels, but if you can do the drills before that, it's going to really help you understand movement better. And if we can understand what we're doing and then integrate it, it's a great way to play golf. Right, let's see if I can, well, I'm not even sure if I'm going to go at that flag. I'm probably going to go to the right of it. I certainly would if I was playing competitively. So let's go middle of the green. To the left, might be a little closer than I intended to. That's how you set your wrist. It's going to give you more power and a pretty good shape of backswing too.